Always ensure the equipment is fitted with the correct rated fuse. A fuse is short for fusible link and is the most basic type of overcurrent protection device. The fuse has two purposes. It protects the wiring if something goes wrong, and it can also protect us. The fuse consists of two metal end caps, sometimes a glass enclosure, and low melting point wire that connects the two end caps together. The low melting point wire melts when the rating of the fuse is exceeded and so protects the circuit. Let's take the following example. Here we have the main supply connected to a fuse that is normally found in the mains plug. When the switch is thrown, current is supplied to the computer as shown in our example. Now let's say a fault has developed in the computer. Then the current will increase to a point where the low melting wire rating will be exceeded and it will melt, breaking the circuit and disconnecting the computer. If it has blown due to a fault, then the fault should be traced and rectified before the fuse is replaced. Fuses in plugs are made in standard ratings. The most common are 3A, 5A and 13A. The fuse should be rated at a slightly larger current than needed for the device. So if an appliance uses less than 3 amps, like most lighting circuits or lamps, then we would use a 3A fuse. If the appliance uses less than 5 amps, such as a monitor, which includes CRTs and TFTs, or computers, then we would replace the fuse with a 5A. But if the appliance has a rating but less than 13 amps, such as an electric heater, then we would use a 13A fuse. So why is it important to ensure the correct rating fuse is used? To answer that, let's ask the question, can we use a 13A fuse in an appliance such as a lamp that only uses less than 2 amps? The answer is yes, you can. Let's see what would happen if you did. Here in our next example, we have connected the main supply to a switch that is connected to a meter that will measure the consumption of amps. At 1 amp, everything appears to be working fine. We should point out that most lamps would work on a current consumption of less than this. Now let's assume the lamp develops a fault and starts to draw more current. As in our example, 2 amps. This continues, and at 3 amps the fuse would normally blow, but we have fitted a 13A fuse, so all that will happen is more current will flow. At 4 amps the lamps will now have entered a dangerous point, and at 5 amps may catch fire. The next question is, can you use a 3A fuse in an appliance that uses 13 amps? Let's replace the fuse in our example with a 3A one, and the appliance with an electric heater that will consume much more than 3 amps. Once we switch on, the appliance starts to consume 1 amp, but the appliance needs much more current and will attempt to draw more amps. This will continue until the rating of the fuse is reached. In our example, it's 3 amps. The appliance will continue to try and draw more and more current to a point where it will exceed 3 amps and the fuse will blow and the circuit will fail. In all cases, replace the fuse with the correct rating. An engineer should also be able to complete simple tasks such as wiring a mains plug and identifying any problems that may occur with it. If at any time you are doubtful, always have your work checked by another engineer. Here we can see a common 13A plug. You will find 3 wires, and the industrial colours are blue for neutral, and when wired into the mains plug will be on the left hand side as shown. The green wire with a yellow tracer is the earth wire, and as shown is connected to the sensor pin. The brown wire is known as the live wire and is connected to the right hand pin. Never confuse these wires as it can be extremely dangerous. The other items we should be aware of is the outer insulation and the cable grip. Some main leads, or more commonly known as kettle leads, have a moulded plug at one end. These are not serviceable and cannot be opened. However, the fuse can be replaced by opening the fuse holder found on underneath the plug. Any electrical main socket or cables that look defective must never be used and should be reported to the user or the appropriate body. Next we shall look at wiring a 13A mains plug.